Broken in Silence. The dark secret that took YUMENGLONG too soon. The world still hasn't found the right words to describe the silence YUMENGLONG left behind. It wasn't just the silence of a lost voice or the pause between his final lines on screen. It was a silence that broke millions of hearts all at once. His death didn't just mark the end of an actor's life. It marked the beginning of a mystery that fans, friends, and the entire entertainment industry are still struggling to comprehend. When the news first broke, disbelief rippled through the digital world like a quiet storm. YUMENGLONG, the gentle smile, the soulful eyes, the man who could make pain look poetic, was gone. Just like that. There was no farewell tour, no warning, no trace of the chaos that had been brewing beneath his calm exterior. The reports were brief and respectful, but they left a haunting emptiness. Something about the way it all happened didn't seem right. It was too sudden, too silent, too incomplete. Behind the scenes, those who knew him well spoke in careful tones, their words heavy with things left unsaid. They described a man who carried a quiet burden, one that never showed under the studio lights but whispered in the shadows when the cameras stopped rolling. YUMENGLONG was known for his emotional depth, for his ability to make the audience feel everything he portrayed. But maybe, just maybe, he was feeling too much himself. There were moments, people recalled, when he would drift away during rehearsals, lost in thought. He would smile, deflect, and say he was fine. And maybe he believed it for a while. But sometimes the brightest souls burn quietly until there's nothing left to save. The more people looked back, the clearer it became that his silence wasn't peace. It was a shield that hid something dark, something painful, something he never wanted the world to see. In the weeks leading up to his death, he had been working tirelessly on multiple projects. Friends mentioned his exhaustion, though he never complained. He was, after all, the professional, the perfectionist who demanded excellence from himself in everything he did. But exhaustion can mask despair, and perfection can sometimes become a prison. The pressure to maintain an image, to keep giving more of himself to the world, may have taken more from him than anyone realized. Social media painted a picture of beauty, fame, and success. Photos of smiling sets, elegant events, and fan interactions flooded his timeline. Yet behind every post, there might have been something darker, something he was too proud or too afraid to admit. It's easy to share light. It's harder to share the cracks. Those who followed him closely noticed subtle changes. The captions grew shorter. The eyes behind the smiles looked a little tired. The silence between updates grew longer. When the tragedy finally struck, it was as if time froze. The industry stopped. Fans around the world mourned not just a star, but a soul that had given them comfort, warmth, and connection through his art. His dramas were rewatched, his interviews revisited, and his words replayed with new meaning. Every line, every look, every pause suddenly felt like a message we hadn't understood when he was alive. We searched for signs, clues, or hidden truths in his performances. Anything to make sense of the darkness that took him away. Some said it was burnout. Others whispered about mental health, emotional isolation, or the crushing pressure of fame. The truth, however, remains locked away, perhaps in the silence he carried, perhaps in the heart he never let anyone fully see. What we do know is that YUMENGLONG's life was a mosaic of beauty and sorrow, of light and shadow, and his death has become a tragic reflection of how the most graceful souls can sometimes be the most fragile. Behind the smiles and stage lights, he was human, aching, vulnerable, and searching for peace in a world that demanded perfection. Friends spoke of how deeply he cared, how much he gave to others, and how little he took for himself. They remembered his laughter, the kind that filled a room but vanished quickly, leaving a strange ache in the air. They spoke of his kindness, his humility, his quiet brilliance. But they also spoke of how hard it was for him to open up, how easily he would turn a question about himself into a compliment for someone else. Maybe that was his way of surviving, by being everything for everyone else while saving nothing for himself. The kind of man who would rather absorb pain than let anyone else feel it. And in the end, it may have been that beautiful flaw, the same one that made him so loved, that also led to his downfall. As tributes poured in, the world realized that Yumenglong's legacy wasn't just about his roles on screen. It was about what he made people feel. He had a rare gift, the ability to make emotion tangible, to make people cry without saying a word. His presence was soft but powerful, his expressions deep but effortless. Every character he played seemed to mirror something real inside him, something raw, something almost too genuine for this world. But it's that very authenticity that made his loss so unbearable. It's as if we all lost someone we personally knew. Fans across continents wrote letters, created art, and held vigils. Online spaces became memorials filled with candles, poems, and broken hearts. People confessed that his performances had helped them through their own darkest times. Some said he made them believe in love again. Others said he reminded them that it was okay to feel deeply. And perhaps in that collective outpouring lies the true tragedy. He gave healing to others, but may never have found it himself. There's something cruel about how silence becomes the loudest sound after someone is gone. Yumenglong's silence echoes still, in every unfinished script, every song left unsung, every role that will now forever remain unplayed. But his memory lives, not as an absence, but as a presence too profound to fade. He may have been broken in silence, but the love he inspired continues to speak louder than ever. The dark secret that took him remains untold, but maybe it doesn't need to be. Maybe the truth isn't in the cause of his death, but in the life he lived, the moments of connection, the artistry, the sincerity that touched hearts worldwide. The real tragedy isn't that he left, but that we never truly saw how much he was hurting while he was here. Now, when fans rewatch his scenes, they don't just see an actor, they see a message. They see resilience wrapped in fragility, passion layered with pain, and truth hidden behind performance. They see a man who gave everything, quietly, beautifully, and completely. In a world obsessed with appearances, Yumenglong's death reminds us of the quiet battles people fight behind closed doors. It reminds us that even the most radiant smiles can hide storms. It teaches us to look deeper, to listen harder, to care more sincerely. He once said in an interview that his goal was to make people feel something real. He succeeded beyond measure. And though the truth of his departure remains shrouded in mystery, one thing is certain: he was real. His pain was real. His love was real. His silence was real. Yumenglong didn't just act. He lived through his art. And in doing so, he gave pieces of himself that will never fade, even though he's gone. Perhaps that's the cruel beauty of his story, the way he broke in silence so that others could find their voice. The world remembers him in fragments: his soft smile under studio lights, the glimmer in his eyes when he laughed, the way his voice could tremble with emotion and still sound like calm rain on a restless night. But behind those tender glimpses of Yumenglong, there was a quiet storm no one ever saw coming. In the months before his death, people closest to him began to sense something shifting, something almost invisible but deeply unsettling. His laughter lingered shorter. His eyes often wandered away from the moment. It wasn't the exhaustion of an actor. It was the weariness of a soul carrying too much weight. Those who saw him on set said he had a habit of staring into empty spaces between takes, as if lost in conversations with himself, or perhaps with ghosts only he could see. One close friend remembered a night after filming when you sat on the edge of the stage long after everyone had gone home. He didn't speak much, but when asked what he was thinking, he replied softly, "Sometimes I feel like the characters I play understand me more than people do." It was a haunting confession, one that in hindsight feels like a cry buried in poetry. That night he walked out into the dark, phone in hand, humming a melody no one could place. It would be the last time that friends saw him smile for real. The industry often celebrates perfection, but perfection comes at a cost. For Yumenglong, the cost was silence. The need to always appear calm, composed, unbreakable. to be a flawless reflection of the characters he portrayed. But real life doesn't follow a script. Real pain doesn't wait for the camera to roll. His silence became his armor, and like all armor, it grew heavier with time. He carried the weight of expectations, millions of fans, countless eyes watching, endless demands for more. He gave them everything: his energy, his sincerity, his emotion. And while the world applauded, he quietly faded behind the curtain. Every performance that made the audience weep was a piece of him chipped away. He wasn't just acting, he was bleeding in slow motion. People talk about his final days as if they were ordinary. But those who paid attention remember the subtle signals, the late-night posts with vague captions, the quiet songs he shared online that sounded more like goodbyes than art. One particular post, a photo of a dimly lit corridor, carried the caption, "Sometimes the light feels too far away." No one thought much of it then. Now it feels like the last page of a diary we didn't know he was writing. The darkness that took him wasn't loud. It didn't scream or demand attention. It crept in quietly like a shadow at dusk. Maybe it came from the loneliness of fame, the strange emptiness of being loved by millions, yet known by none. Maybe it came from a secret heartbreak, a dream unfulfilled, a pressure too heavy for one person to bear. Or maybe, as some have whispered, it came from something deeper, an emotional wound left untreated for far too long. There are stories that he spent sleepless nights alone in his apartment, the glow of his screen his only companion. He would scroll through fan messages, smiling at their love, but also feeling the impossible burden of their expectations. He wanted to be strong for them, to stay as their hope. But even the strongest hearts crack under too much devotion. One night, after a particularly long shoot, he called a friend. They talked for hours about life, art, and the strange emptiness success can bring. His voice was calm, almost peaceful, but there was something final in it, an unspoken goodbye. He said, "Sometimes I just want to rest where no one expects anything from me." The next morning, the world woke up to the news no one wanted to believe. The headlines were respectful, but cold. Actor YUMENGLONG passes away unexpectedly. But fans refused to let it end there. They filled social media with memories, tears, and questions that may never be answered. They revisited his interviews, his dramas, his songs, trying to find clues, trying to piece together the puzzle of a man who gave everything and still felt unseen. His legacy became more than just entertainment. It became a reflection of the silent suffering so many endure. His death opened a wound in an industry built on appearances. It forced people to ask, how many more smiles are hiding pain? How many more stars are breaking behind the lights? The most heartbreaking part of YUMENGLONG's story is how he kept giving beauty to the world while drowning in his own darkness. His performances were love letters written in invisible ink, expressions of longing, sorrow, and hope. In one of his most famous scenes, he said, "If I disappear, will anyone notice the silence I leave behind?" Fans now replay that line as if it were prophecy. In that silence, the world has found its reflection. People have begun to talk more openly about mental health, loneliness, and the emotional toll of fame. His name has become a symbol, not of tragedy alone, but of truth. The truth that sensitivity is not weakness, that those who make us feel the most are often the ones who hurt the deepest. Today, fans visit his old filming locations, leaving flowers, letters, and handwritten notes that say, "You are not forgotten." Some even play his songs softly, letting his voice linger in the air like a ghost of comfort. The silence he left has become sacred, an echo of everything he was and everything he hid. And in that silence there's a lesson, that we must listen more carefully, love more gently, and look beyond the surface. Because sometimes the people who seem the most composed are the ones holding themselves together by fragile threads. YUMENGLONG may be gone, but his story continues to whisper through time. His light, though dimmed too soon, still reaches hearts that need it most. Every tear shed for him carries the memory of his tenderness. Every tribute is a reminder that silence can speak volumes. He was broken in silence, but his silence has broken the world open, forcing it to see the pain hidden behind perfection. And perhaps, somewhere beyond the noise of this world, he has finally found the peace he longed for. For those he left behind, his memory is not just a wound, it's a promise. A promise to be real, to feel deeply, and to never again let silence be mistaken for peace. Because Yumenglong's story, though tragic, is also a reminder of what it means to be human. He lived beautifully. He broke quietly. And even in death, he continues to teach us the most profound truth of all, that love, when real, never dies. It lingers in silence, in memory, and in the hearts of those who still whisper his name under the fading light. Forever broken, forever remembered.